He had inherited an empire, polished boardrooms and glass towers, but none of it filled the quiet ache inside. She managed numbers by day, but dreamed of her farm under the sun, where life was real. When their worlds collided, it wasn't chance, it was destiny. But destiny doesn't come easy. Especially when his own mother swore she'd destroy it. "Hi, my beautiful family. I have missed you all. Thank you so for sticking around with me. I truly appreciate your love and support." If you're already hooked in for today's story and ready to enjoy it, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. Adrian Cortez leaned back in a high-backed leather chair, his gaze fixed on the floor-to-ceiling windows of his downtown office. The skyline glittered, steel and glass stretching endlessly under the September sun. He should have felt proud. He had kept his late father's business not only alive but thriving. But behind the gleaming desk, behind the tailored navy suit, his jaw tightened. His mother's voice still echoed from their breakfast conversation that morning. "Adrian, image is everything. Do not tarnish your father's legacy with distractions." He clenched his pen, pressing the tip into the page until it nearly snapped. Distractions. That was what she called life outside her carefully drawn circle. To her, every dinner, every deal, every potential partner was a calculated move in the chess game of high society. To Adrian, it felt like a cage lined with velvet. He rubbed his temples. At 33, he had more money than he could spend, more respect than he cared to claim, and less peace than he'd ever known. His employees saw a man in control, but alone in his office, he felt restless. Empty. The intercom buzzed. His assistant's voice came through. "Mr. Cortez, you have the quarterly review with financial partners in 30 minutes. "Send them in when they arrive," Adrian said, his voice calm, steady, the way his father's once was. But inside, a small voice whispered, "For once, I want something that isn't just business." 2 blocks away, in a modest office with buzzing fluorescent lights, Isabella Reyes adjusted her glasses and tapped figures into her laptop. Finance wasn't glamorous, but it was stable, and it paid for what mattered, her little farm back in Mexico. She smiled faintly at the thought of it. Rows of corn swaying under the sun, chickens running free, her grandmother humming old songs on the porch. The farm wasn't just land, it was roots, memory, survival. Her co-workers often teased her for not dreaming bigger, for not clawing her way up to Wall Street or Silicon Valley. But Isabella didn't crave skyscrapers. She craved balance, authenticity, the quiet dignity of work she chose for herself. A colleague dropped a stack of files on her desk. "Reyes, the Cortez Group is sending reps for the partnership audit. Big deal. Don't mess this one up." She arched a brow. "Thanks for the vote of confidence." As she flipped through the files, her eyes caught on the name, Adrian Cortez. The name carried weight, even in whispered conversations at her office. Young, wealthy, brilliant. A man both admired and judged. She didn't know then that destiny had just written his name into her story. That night, Adrian sat in his penthouse, city lights flickering like stars at his feet. A glass of whiskey in hand, he scrolled through emails without reading them. His mother's text arrived just as he expected. "Dinner with the Hamiltons tomorrow. Their daughter is charming. Be on time." He set the phone down, jaw tight. His life was scripted to the second, his mother holding the pen. Meanwhile, Isabella finished her shift and walked home, the evening air crisp around her. She stopped at a cafe, ordering a small latte she probably didn't need, scrolling through pictures of her farm. Chickens, cornfields, sunlight. Her sanctuary. 2 souls. 2 lives. Different worlds. And yet, a shared restlessness, one of gilded emptiness, the other of longing for more than survival. The following morning, Adrian strode into the conference hall of Cortez Group's headquarters, tie knotted perfectly, confidence radiating. A row of representatives from smaller firms were already seated, files in hand. And there she was. Isabella. Hair pulled into a neat bun, her skin glowing against the crisp white blouse, her eyes sharp but curious as they scanned the presentation slides. She didn't notice him at first. She was too focused, too professional. But Adrian noticed. He paused mid-step, his chest tightening as though something unseen had shifted in the air. He couldn't name it, just the quiet certainty that this woman wasn't like the rest. His mother's words returned, stern and cold, "Don't tarnish the legacy." Yet, in that instant, Adrian felt something he hadn't in years. A pull. A spark. As though fate had just set the stage. As the meeting began, Isabella finally looked up, her gaze locking with his across the polished mahogany table. Neither smiled, neither spoke, but the silence between them was louder than any greeting. Adrian's pulse quickened. Isabella's heart skipped. They didn't know it yet, but destiny had just whispered both their names. Have you ever met someone who made the world feel different in an instant, like destiny itself was pulling you together? Share your story in the comments. The conference room buzzed with quiet tension. Numbers flashed across the projection screen, slides shifting with graphs and forecasts. Isabella kept her focus trained on the material, her pen gliding across her notepad. But she could feel it, the weight of a gaze. She looked up again, just for a second. His eyes were already there. Steady. Dark. Studying her, as though she were not just another face at the table but something rare. Isabella's lips pressed together. She returned her attention to her notes, refusing to be distracted. Men like him, polished, wealthy, untouchable, were not for women like her. She had seen enough arrogance wrapped in designer suits to last a lifetime. Yet, something about him unsettled her resolve. When the meeting ended, executives stood, shaking hands, exchanging polite promises to circle back. Isabella gathered her papers quickly, intent on slipping out. She had no interest in networking with a billionaire heir. But Adrian crossed the room before she could escape. "Miss Reyes, is it?" His voice was calm, deep, carrying the kind of authority people listen to without question. She glanced up. "Yes. And you're Mr. Cortez." The way she said it, flat, unflinching, wasn't the response Adrian usually received. Most people softened their voices, added a touch of reverence. She hadn't. It intrigued him. "I noticed your analysis on the debt restructuring model," he said. "You asked sharper questions than most." She tilted her head slightly. "I wasn't asking to impress anyone. Just wanted clarity." A corner of Adrian's mouth curved. "That's rare." Silence lingered. The air between them tightened, humming with something unspoken. Isabella shifted her bag on her shoulder. "Well, Mr. Cortez, clarity is part of my job." And with that, she walked away. Adrian stood, watching her leave. It wasn't rejection, not exactly. It was resistance. And resistance was far more powerful. That evening, Adrian returned to his mother's estate for dinner. The Cortez mansion glowed with chandeliers, silverware gleaming on the long table. His mother, Catalina, sat at the head, poised in a silk gown, her presence commanding as ever. "You were at the partnership review today," she began, slicing her steak with calculated precision. "Did you meet anyone worthwhile?" Adrian's fork paused. Her question wasn't about business. It never was. "Business went as expected," he replied. Catalina's eyes narrowed. "That's not an answer." He sipped his wine. "It's all you're getting tonight." But Isabella's face had already slipped into his thoughts. Her defiance, her independence, her refusal to bow. And for the first time in years, Adrian didn't feel like his mother owned every corner of his mind. 2 days later, fate intervened again. Isabella had stayed late at the office, finishing reports. By the time she stepped outside, the city streets were nearly empty, a cool wind sweeping between the buildings. As she turned toward the subway, a sleek black car slowed beside her. The window rolled down. "Need a ride?" "Adrian." She stopped. Her pulse skipped. "I don't take rides from strangers." His lips curved. "We're not strangers. We're business partners, technically." Her brow arched. "That doesn't make it less strange." For a moment, silence. Then Adrian surprised himself. He laughed. A low, genuine sound that cracked the armor he usually wore. "I suppose you're right," he said. "But I was headed this way. Thought I'd offer." She hesitated. Logic screamed to decline. Yet curiosity pulled at her. Something about him, the way he didn't press, didn't demand, felt different. Against her better judgment, she opened the car door. Inside, the city lights flickered past the tinted glass. Adrian stole glances at her as she sat, arms folded, posture firm, as if protecting herself from something invisible. "You don't like this world much, do you?" he asked finally. Her head turned. "What world?" "This one. Suits, skyscrapers, endless meetings." She gave a faint smile. "I like my work. But no, I don't live for this." "Then what do you live for?" Her answer came without hesitation. "My farm. Back home. That's where I breathe. That's where I remember who I am." Adrian absorbed her words in silence. A farm. Roots. Something real. How different from the cold marble halls of his own life. When the car pulled up near her apartment, Isabella turned to him. "Thank you for the ride. But don't get used to it." He smiled faintly. "I wouldn't dare." She stepped out, closing the door behind her. Adrian watched her disappear into the building, the quiet ache in his chest growing sharper. That night, Isabella lay awake, replaying the sound of his laugh. Why had it felt so real? Why did it matter? Adrian, meanwhile, sat in his penthouse, staring at the city. His mother's world suddenly felt smaller, narrower, less important. Something had begun. Something neither of them could ignore. Do you believe destiny can pull two people together no matter how different their worlds are? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Could it happen in real life? The morning sun spilled across the Cortez Group's headquarters, bouncing off glass walls and polished marble floors. Adrian strode through the lobby, but his mind wasn't on numbers, contracts, or quarterly projections. It was on Isabella, her sharp questions, her quiet strength, the way her presence lingered long after she was gone. He hated how much space she took up in his thoughts. And worse, he hated how his mother's voice always seemed to swoop in after, snapping the threads of warmth with cold commands. Don't tarnish the legacy. Be careful who you're seen with. Adrian gritted his teeth as the elevator doors closed. He told himself it was nothing, just a passing interest. A moment of curiosity. He had meetings to run, an empire to manage. He didn't have time for distractions. But deep down, he knew he was lying to himself. Across town, Isabella sat at her desk with a half-empty coffee and a stack of reports. Her co-workers buzzed with chatter about promotions, new contracts, the social lives of the city's elite. She tuned them out, focusing on the spreadsheet in front of her. Her phone buzzed. A text. Unknown number. Hope you got home safe. Adrian Cortez. Her fingers hovered over the screen. She should delete it. Ignore him. That would be the smart thing. Instead, she typed, "I did. Thank you." Then she set the phone face down on her desk, heart thumping far too hard for such a simple reply. Why was she entertaining this? Men like him didn't end up with women like her. He lived in penthouses. She balanced budgets and sent money back to her grandmother for the farm. He came from old money. She came from dirt under her fingernails. Besides, she knew what came with men of power: control, pride, expectation. And she had promised herself never to be caged. So why did his laugh still echo in her head? That evening, Adrian returned to his mother's estate. Catalina Cortez was waiting, her posture regal in the candlelit dining hall. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. "I've heard things," she said, her voice smooth, deliberate. Adrian set his glass down carefully. "About what?" "About who you've been seen with. A woman. Dark-skinned. Foreign. An employee, if I'm not mistaken." Catalina's lips curved in disdain. Adrian's jaw hardened. "Her name is Isabella Reyes." Catalina arched a brow. "Then she already has more of your attention than she should." He leaned back, forcing calm. "She's intelligent. Independent. She has nothing to do with business." "Exactly my point," Catalina cut in. "She has nothing to do with us. Do you want whispers in boardrooms? Headlines questioning the Cortez legacy? You carry your father's name, Adrian. Do not forget what it costs to protect it." The words stung, but deeper than that, they infuriated him. His father's name had become chains. And his mother? The jailer. Still, he said nothing. Because arguing with Catalina was like striking stone with bare fists. The next week, Adrian found himself outside Isabella's office building. He didn't know why. He told himself it was for business, but when she stepped out, surprise flickering across her face, he knew the truth. "Mr. Cortez," she said, her tone cool. "What brings you here?" "Adrian," he corrected softly. I was wondering if you'd like to have dinner." Her brows knit. "Dinner?" "Yes. Nothing formal. Just conversation." She crossed her arms. "Why me?" The question caught him. He could have said something smooth, something polished. Instead, the truth slipped out. "Because when you speak, I actually listen." For a heartbeat, Isabella's guard faltered. But then her chin lifted. "That's flattering, but I don't mix business with other things. And I don't fit into your world." Adrian stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Maybe I'm tired of my world." Her heart stuttered, but she masked it with a firm shake of her head. "I'm not interested, Adrian. Good night." She walked away before he could answer, her steps sharp, deliberate. Each one cost her something. Because she was interested. That was the problem. Later that night, Isabella sat by her apartment window, city lights glittering below. She opened her grandmother's last letter, the handwriting shaky but strong. "Mija, never forget, your worth isn't measured by their approval. You carry our roots with you. The farm waits for you always." Tears pricked her eyes. She couldn't let herself fall for a man who lived in another universe. A man whose mother would rather see her broken than at his side. She closed her eyes, whispering to herself, "Don't be foolish. Don't." Meanwhile, Adrian stood on his balcony, the city sprawling beneath him like a kingdom he didn't want. His phone buzzed with a message from his mother. "Dinner with the Hamiltons tomorrow. Their daughter will be there." Adrian deleted it without replying. His chest ached with something fierce, something restless. Something that sounded like Isabella's voice. They were both resisting. Both retreating. He, out of loyalty to a mother who bound him. She, out of fear of losing her independence. But resistance only sharpened the tension. And destiny, patient as ever, was waiting for the next move. Adrian resists by bowing to his mother's control, but begins to strain against it. The annual Cortez Group Partners Gala was the kind of event Isabella usually read about in glossy magazines but never expected to attend. It was opulent, crystal chandeliers, champagne flowing, silk gowns brushing against polished marble. Yet there she was, heels clicking nervously as she followed her manager inside. Their firm had been invited to present a joint project with Cortez Group, and Isabella, as lead analyst, had no choice but to be there. She told herself she would keep her head down, present her work, and leave. Nothing more. But fate rarely listens. Adrian spotted her the moment she entered. Among diamonds and glittering gowns, Isabella's simple navy dress stood out for its elegance, not its extravagance. She carried herself with quiet confidence, like someone who knew her worth without needing anyone else to declare it. His pulse quickened. He hadn't expected to see her here. And yet, here she was. He approached before he could stop himself. Isabella. She turned, startled. Her eyes flickered, first with surprise, then with irritation. Mr. Cortez. Of course. Adrian, he corrected softly, leaning closer. Please. She exhaled slowly. What do you want? A conversation. One that isn't in a boardroom. She glanced around. Too many eyes, too much spectacle. This isn't the place. Then let's find somewhere quieter, he suggested. Her instinct screamed to walk away. But her manager appeared just then, shoving a folder into her hands. Reyes, you'll be presenting with Mr. Cortez. 20 minutes. Her stomach dropped. Forced proximity. Exactly what she didn't want. On stage, the lights were blinding. Adrian spoke with practiced charisma, his voice steady, his presence commanding. Isabella stood beside him, presenting her data with clear precision. To the audience, they looked seamless, a perfect balance of authority and intellect. But beneath the surface, every glance, every brush of his hand near hers sent sparks racing up her arm. She hated how aware she was of him. When the presentation ended, the applause roared. Adrian leaned slightly toward her, his voice low enough only she could hear. You make me better up here. Her throat tightened. She turned away quickly, exiting the stage as though the distance would quiet the storm inside her. Later, seeking air, Isabella slipped out onto the balcony. The city stretched wide, lights glittering like stars. She pressed her hands against the cool stone railing, trying to steady herself. You always run when I get close. The voice came from behind. Smooth. Familiar. She turned. Adrian stood in the doorway, his tie loosened, his expression softer than she had ever seen it. I don't run, she said, though her pulse betrayed her. He stepped closer. Then what do you do? I protect myself. Silence settled between them, heavy with truth. Adrian's gaze searched hers. Do you think I'd hurt you? Her laugh was soft, bitter. Not you, maybe. But your world. Your mother. The whispers. I'd be swallowed whole. Adrian's jaw clenched. He hated that she was right. He hated more that Catalina's shadow was already stretching between them. I don't care what people whisper, he said finally. Maybe you don't, Isabella whispered back. But your mother does. And you still listen. The words struck like knives. Because they were true. Before he could answer, music drifted from inside, soft, elegant, pulling couples onto the dance floor. Adrian extended his hand. Dance with me. Just once. No whispers. No mothers. Just us. Her chest rose with a sharp inhale. Every part of her wanted to refuse. But something deeper, something reckless, pushed her hand into his. The moment their palms touched, it was as if the universe sighed. He pulled her gently onto the dance floor, their bodies moving in rhythm with the music. Around them, laughter and chatter blurred into nothing. Isabella met his gaze, and for the first time, she didn't look away. I shouldn't be here, she murmured. But you are, Adrian replied, his voice low, steady. And I don't want this moment to end. Her heart twisted. Because she didn't either. As the song ended, applause broke around them, but neither noticed. For a fleeting moment, it was only them. Then Catalina Cortez's sharp voice cut across the floor. Adrian. He stiffened, Isabella's hand slipping from his. Catalina's eyes were cold steel as they landed on Isabella. The cage had returned. The spell had shattered. But deep inside, something fragile had begun to bloom. Have you ever been caught between your heart and the expectations of others? Did you fight for what you felt, or walk away? Share below. The morning after the gala, Isabella sat at her desk, replaying the night in her head. The dance. The warmth in his eyes. The steel in his mother's. She felt caught between two worlds, one that pulled her in with dangerous sweetness, and another that reminded her where she truly belonged. Her phone buzzed. An email. Subject: farm loan approved. Her lips parted, a small smile tugging at the corners. Relief swept over her. The farm back home, the cornfields, the orchard, the animals, would thrive again. But the joy was bittersweet. Because she knew she couldn't lose herself in Adrian's world. Not when her roots mattered so much. Meanwhile, Adrian sat in his office, staring at a photo of his late father on the shelf. Strong jaw, steady eyes, a man who once commanded empires. He remembered being 12 years old, sneaking out to play soccer with neighborhood kids, dirt staining his white shirt. His father had laughed, tousling his hair. "Don't let the world cage you, son. Money means nothing if you can't live." But after his father's sudden death, his mother had taken over, turning love into legacy, warmth into control. Now Catalina's voice rang in his head from the gala. "Don't embarrass this family." Adrian clenched his fists. He was living for his father's ghost, but chained by his mother's grip. And Isabella made him feel alive. Later that week, Adrian found himself near Isabella's office again. He told himself it was coincidence, but when he saw her walking out with a folder tucked under her arm, he knew better. "Isabella," he called. She turned, her guarded expression softening slightly. "Adrian, what are you doing here?" "Honestly? Hoping you'd give me 5 minutes." She hesitated, then sighed. 5. They walked toward a small cafe nearby. The place was simple, warm, filled with the smell of cinnamon and coffee beans. They slid into a booth by the window. Adrian leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table. "Tell me about you. Not the reports. Not the numbers. You." Isabella hesitated, then smiled faintly. "You wouldn't understand." "Try me." She looked out the window, gathering herself. "My grandmother raised me. In Mexico. She taught me that family and land are everything. That if you care for the earth, it will care for you. The farm isn't just crops, it's history. It's the only place I feel like myself." Her voice faltered, but she pushed on. "I came here to work, to save money. But I don't want to lose myself chasing skyscrapers. That's why I protect my heart. Because I've seen what money does to people." Her eyes flicked to him, steady, almost accusing. Adrian swallowed. He wanted to defend himself. But instead, he nodded. "You're right. Money, it can corrupt. I've seen it destroy families. Mine included." Isabella tilted her head. "Destroy? You're one of the wealthiest men in this city. You have everything." Adrian let out a hollow laugh. "Everything but freedom. My father was different. He cared about people. About balance. But when he died, my mother, she turned it into control. Every decision I make, she weighs it against the Cortez name. I can't breathe without her measuring it." For a moment, his mask slipped. She saw not the polished millionaire, but a man scarred by expectation. Their eyes met. And something unspoken passed between them, a recognition of wounds carried quietly, of burdens invisible to the world. "Adrian," Isabella began softly, then stopped. Her chest tightened. She wanted to reach across the table, to tell him she understood, that she saw him. But the cafe was full of eyes, and her walls stood tall. Instead, she said, "You don't have to let her control you." He gave a rueful smile. Easier said than done. Maybe, she admitted. But sometimes you have to choose between living for others or living for yourself. Her words pierced him. Because he had never chosen himself. Not once. Just as the air thickened between them, Adrian's phone buzzed. A message from his mother. Where are you? The Hamiltons are waiting. Don't keep them. Isabella noticed the name flashing across the screen. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Go, she said quietly. Adrian's chest ached. Isabella. Go, she repeated, standing. Her walls had returned. Your world needs you. And mine needs me. She walked out of the cafe before he could stop her. Adrian sat in the booth, phone still buzzing, untouched. For the first time, he didn't want to answer his mother's call. For the first time, he wanted to chase someone else's truth more than his own obligations. Isabella's words echoed in his mind. Sometimes you have to choose between living for others or living for yourself. He wasn't ready to admit it aloud, but deep inside he knew he was already choosing her. Do you believe our past, family, roots, upbringing, defines who we end up loving? Or can love break those walls? Share your thoughts in the comments. The city felt unusually soft that evening. The air was warm, the streets alive but not overwhelming. Isabella had just finished another long day at the office when her phone buzzed. Adrian, one more chance. Dinner. Not fancy. Just real. Please. She stared at the screen, torn. Part of her wanted to delete the message, to guard her heart. But another part, quiet, stubborn, was tired of resisting something that felt like truth. She typed back. No boardrooms. No suits. His reply came instantly. Deal. Adrian arrived in jeans and a plain shirt, looking almost unrecognizable without his armor of tailored suits. He picked her up in a modest sedan, not the sleek black car from before. Isabella arched a brow. No chauffeur. He chuckled. Not tonight. I wanted this to be normal. They drove to a small family-run Mexican restaurant tucked between two bookstores. The air smelled of grilled corn and spices, laughter spilling out as they entered. For once, Adrian didn't stand out as the billionaire heir. He was just a man trying. Over tacos and horchata, Isabella teased him about not knowing how to properly fold a tortilla. He laughed, genuinely, shaking his head. Do you ever get tired of people treating you like royalty? She asked. All the time, he admitted. That's why I wanted to be here. With you. Her cheeks warmed. She hated how much those words disarmed her. After dinner, they walked along the street, neon lights painting the sidewalk. Isabella talked about her farm, about the orchard she wanted to expand, about the smell of fresh soil after rain. Adrian listened intently, his eyes never leaving hers. You light up when you talk about it, he said softly. I can almost see it. She smiled faintly. It's the only place that feels like home. What if you could build that life here? Her smile faded. It wouldn't be the same. Roots don't move. They grow where they were planted. Adrian fell silent. For the first time, he envied something he had never valued, roots. At one point, Isabella pulled him into a small shop filled with trinkets and handmade crafts. She tried on a ridiculous straw hat, tilting it dramatically. Adrian burst into laughter, loud, unguarded, startling even himself. Customers turned to look, but he didn't care. You should laugh like that more often, Isabella said, smiling. Only you make me laugh like that, he admitted. Her chest tightened. She quickly placed the hat back, but the warmth lingered. As they walked back to the car, rain began to fall, first a drizzle, then a steady downpour. Isabella squealed, running under an awning, but Adrian stood in it, face tilted upward, eyes closed. What are you doing? She called, half laughing. Remembering what it feels like to be free, he said, water dripping down his face. Something about the sight, this powerful man stripped of pretense, letting rain wash over him, broke her carefully built defenses. She stepped into the rain, joining him, laughing as droplets soaked her hair and clothes. Adrian opened his eyes, locking on hers. For a moment, the world was just water, laughter, and the thundering silence of something unspoken. He brushed a wet strand of hair from her cheek, his touch lingering. She didn't pull away. Their faces were inches apart, breath mingling in the rain. "Isabella," Adrian whispered. She swallowed hard. Her heart screamed yes. Her mind screamed no. "Don't," she murmured, voice trembling. "Why not?" "Because if we start this, it won't end simple." His chest rose sharply, but he nodded. He respected her words, even as they tore at him. Instead, he took her hand, holding it tightly as the rain poured down around them. Later, as he drove her home, neither spoke. The silence wasn't empty. It was charged, alive, trembling with what almost happened. When they reached her building, she hesitated before stepping out. Tonight was real. "Thank you." Adrian's gaze softened. "Then let's promise, no matter what my world, your world, or anyone else says, we'll keep finding something real." Her heart ached, because she wanted to believe him. But deep down, she feared reality had other plans. Do you believe two people from opposite worlds can create something real together, or will reality always win? Tell us what you think. The rain-soaked evening replayed in Isabella's mind for days. Adrian's laughter, his hand in hers, the way his gaze stripped away every layer of doubt she tried to wear. But reality didn't stay silent for long. 2 nights later, she was called into Adrian's office at Cortez Enterprises. The assistant said it was urgent. Her stomach knotted as she entered, expecting Adrian. Instead, she found Catalina Cortez waiting. Catalina stood by the wide glass windows, her posture regal, her eyes sharp as a blade. "So," Catalina said smoothly, "you're the woman distracting my son." Isabella stiffened. "Mrs. Cortez, I don't think." Catalina cut her off. "Let's not play games. You're clever, beautiful, independent. I see why he's intrigued. But let's be clear, you are not his equal." The words sliced, calm but merciless. "I work for my future. I don't need his money," Isabella said firmly. Catalina's lips curved into a cold smile. "That's exactly what makes you dangerous. Women like you think independence shields you. But my son's world will devour you. The scrutiny, the expectations, the endless obligations, you will be crushed. And when you fall, you'll drag him with you." Isabella's throat tightened, but she forced her chin up. "If Adrian chooses me, that's his decision." Catalina stepped closer, her perfume strong, suffocating. "Adrian doesn't choose. He obeys. He is a Cortez. And I will not allow a woman from humble roots to stain what we have built." For the first time in years, Isabella felt the sting of old insecurities, the ones she thought she buried when she left her small hometown. "Mother." Adrian's voice cut through the tension as he entered. He froze, seeing Isabella pale and stiff across from Catalina. "Adrian," Catalina said smoothly, turning. "We were just having a conversation." Isabella's eyes searched his, desperate for him to speak, to defend her, to prove his promises weren't empty. But Adrian hesitated. Catalina's hand rested on his arm. "You have a meeting with the Hamiltons. Shall we?" Adrian's jaw clenched. He looked at Isabella. He saw her pain, her silent plea. But years of obedience weighed heavy. Finally he said, "Isabella, we'll talk later." Her heart cracked. Just like that. She turned, blinking back tears, and walked out before either could stop her. Back in her small apartment, Isabella sat on the edge of her bed, trembling. Catalina's words replayed, "You are not his equal." She hated that they echoed inside her, that they found cracks in her armor. She hated even more that Adrian who made promises in the rain, had stood silent. She whispered to herself, "You knew better. You knew this couldn't last." That night, Adrian paced his penthouse, restless. He could still see Isabella's wounded face, the way her shoulders stiffened as she walked out. "Coward," he muttered at himself. His father's voice echoed in memory, "Don't let the world cage you, son. Don't let fear silence you." But fear had silenced him. Catalina appeared in the doorway, serene. "She's strong, yes. But not for you. Don't throw away everything for a fantasy." "Mother," Adrian snapped, "you don't decide who I love." Her smile faltered, but her eyes remained cold. "Then prove it. But don't say I didn't warn you when she leaves." The next morning, Adrian tried to call Isabella. She didn't answer. He sent messages. No reply. Finally, he showed up at her office. She stepped into the lobby, arms crossed, face unreadable. "Isabella, please." "You let her tear me apart," she said flatly. "I froze," he admitted. "I was wrong. I should have defended you." Her eyes shimmered with restrained emotion. "But you didn't. And if this is what it looks like when things are just starting, what will it be in 10 years? 20? Your mother will always come first." "That's not true," Adrian insisted, voice breaking. She shook her head. "It is. And I can't fight for someone who won't fight for me." He reached for her hand. She stepped back. The distance between them felt final. As Isabella turned and walked away, Adrian felt something tear inside him. For the first time, the man who had everything, wealth, power, control, felt utterly powerless. He stood in the lobby, surrounded by marble and glass, realizing that no empire, no fortune, no obedience could fill the void she left behind. And Isabella, riding the elevator back to her office, whispered through clenched teeth, "Never again." But her tears betrayed her. Because part of her still wanted him to chase her. If you were Isabella, would you give Adrian another chance after his silence? Or would you walk away forever? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The decision came quietly, like a whisper in the night. Isabella sat at her small desk, surrounded by papers and photographs of her farm. One picture showed her grandmother under the shade of an old tree, smiling with weathered hands holding a basket of fruit. That was home. That was truth. And no amount of gala nights or stolen laughter in the rain could erase the fact that Adrian belonged to another world, one ruled by a mother who saw her as unworthy. Isabella closed her laptop, opened her email, and booked a one-way flight back to Mexico. Her chest tightened, but for the first time in weeks, her decision felt clear. She wrote him a letter, hands trembling as she poured her heart onto the page. "Adrian, you made me feel alive in ways I didn't expect. But I can't compete with the life your mother has mapped out for you. I deserve peace, and you deserve someone your world will accept. Please don't chase me. If it's meant to be, it will find us again. Isabella." She sealed it, leaving it at the front desk of his office. Her tears smudged the ink, but she didn't rewrite it. The imperfection felt real, like her. Hours later, Adrian stormed into his office after another tense board meeting. His assistant handed him the envelope. From Ms. Morales. His heart pounded as he tore it open. By the second sentence, his breath caught. By the last, his hands were shaking. He dropped into his chair, clutching the letter to his chest. No, Isabella." Catalina entered moments later, her voice clipped. "What's this I hear about Isabella leaving?" Adrian's head snapped up, eyes blazing. "You knew." Catalina didn't flinch. "I suspected. Women like her don't last in this world. Better to end it now." Something broke in him then. The dam that had held back years of obedience, of silence, of swallowing his truth for hers. "You don't get to decide this for me anymore," he said, voice low, dangerous. "Adrian." No, he interrupted, rising to his feet. I've listened to you all my life. I've built your empire. But I can't keep building it at the cost of my soul. Catalina's eyes widened. For the first time, she saw not her boy, but a man standing against her. That night, Adrian stood alone on his balcony, the city lights sprawling endlessly below. He thought of his father, of the promise to live free, of the laughter Isabella had coaxed out of him in that tiny restaurant. He whispered into the night, "I love her." The words scared him. They also set him free. Because now, there was only one choice left. At dawn, Isabella rolled her suitcase through the quiet airport terminal. She wore simple clothes, her farm boots tucked inside her bag. Every step forward was a step away from him. The boarding call rang out. She handed her ticket to the attendant, her heart heavy but resolute. As she walked down the jet bridge, memories flooded her. Adrian's clumsy tortilla fold, his unguarded laugh, his hand brushing rain from her cheek. She blinked them away. You can't live on memories, she told herself. You have to live on what's real. And what was real was her farm, her roots, her life. Meanwhile, Adrian sat in his car outside the airport, the letter still folded in his pocket. His driver looked at him through the rearview mirror. "Sir, shall we go back?" Adrian's chest tightened. He had minutes, maybe seconds, before the plane would take off. "No," he said firmly. "We're going in." He threw open the door, heart pounding, legs moving before his mind could catch up. For once, he wasn't thinking of legacy, of image, of his mother. He was thinking only of her. Isabella fastened her seatbelt, staring out the window at the rising sun. Adrian sprinted through the terminal, past confused travelers, past security guards shouting after him. His lungs burned, his heart thundered, but he didn't care. For the first time in his life, Adrian Cortez was chasing something his heart wanted, not something his mother demanded. And he prayed he wasn't already too late. If you were Adrian, would you defy your family and chase Isabella to another country, or let her go in peace? Comment your choice below. The plane touched down hours later on sun-baked soil. Isabella stepped off with her suitcase and a heart still raw. The familiar scent of earth, roasted corn from vendors outside the airport, and the hum of Spanish all around grounded her. This was home. This was safety. And yet, in the quiet corners of her heart, she felt the ache of absence. Days passed as Isabella threw herself into the farm. She woke with the sunrise, pulled on her boots, and walked through the rows of corn and fruit trees. Her workers greeted her warmly. Children from the village waved as she passed. Here, she wasn't the woman unworthy of a millionaire. Here, she was Isabella Morales, strong, capable, rooted. But in the silence of night, when the cicadas sang and the stars spread wide, she remembered his laughter, his eyes, his hand in the rain. She told herself she was healing, but the wound still bled. Meanwhile, Adrian was on a plane of his own. He had left behind meetings, ignored his mother's furious calls, and booked a flight the moment he knew where Isabella had gone. As the aircraft descended over the patchwork fields of Mexico, his chest tightened. For once, he wasn't arriving for business, profit, or empire. He was arriving for love. Isabella was walking back from the fields when she heard the sound of a car pulling up by the old gate. She frowned, dusting her hands on her jeans. Hardly anyone drove up unannounced. When the door opened and Adrian stepped out, dressed simply, no entourage in sight, her heart stopped. "Adrian," she whispered. He looked at her, eyes weary but alive. "You told me not to chase you. But I couldn't listen. Not this time." Her throat tightened. "You shouldn't be here." "I had to be," he said, stepping closer. "Because for the first time in my life, I know exactly what I want. And it's you." She shook her head, tears brimming. "Adrian, your mother is not my life," he cut in, his voice trembling with conviction. "She's ruled me long enough. I've built everything she asked. I've obeyed every command. But when you left, I realized I was building a life I didn't even want. He took her hand, dirt still on her palm from the fields, pressing it against his chest. This is real. You, me, right here. I'm done letting anyone decide for me. Isabella's tears spilled freely now. Her heart screamed to believe him, but her mind whispered caution. A storm rolled in, clouds gathering above as if the sky mirrored her turmoil. Rain began to fall, the same way it had that night in the city. Adrian didn't move. He let the rain soak him, his gaze locked on her. "Do you remember?" he asked softly. Her lips trembled. "I remember." "Then know this," he whispered, stepping closer. "I'm not letting go this time." She wanted to throw herself into his arms, but fear still chained her. "Adrian, love isn't enough to erase worlds apart." His jaw clenched, but his eyes were tender. "Then I'll build a bridge, however long it takes." Lightning flashed in the distance, thunder rumbling. The rain came harder, drenching them both. Adrian fell to his knees in the mud, clutching her hands. "Don't send me back. Don't tell me to forget you. Because I can't. I won't." Isabella's heart broke at the sight of him, the man who once stood in glass towers now kneeling in the dirt for her. She dropped to her knees too, tears mixing with rain, holding his face in her hands. "Adrian," she whispered. The air hung thick, trembling, waiting for her answer. But before she could speak, voices called from the farmhouse. Workers ran toward them, shouting about an urgent matter. Isabella pulled back, startled, reality rushing in. She rose quickly, wiping her face. Adrian stood too, desperate. "Isabella," he pleaded, "say something, anything." She looked at him, eyes torn between love and fear. Then she turned toward the farmhouse, leaving him standing in the storm. As Adrian watched her walk away into the rain, he knew this wasn't the end. He had come too far, risked too much. This was only the beginning of his fight. And deep down, Isabella knew it too. Because no matter how hard she tried, the storm inside her whispered the truth. She loved him.
And that brings us to the end of part 1 of this emotional journey. What have we seen so far? That love is powerful, but it's never easy. That family pressure, fear of loss, and the weight of the past can threaten even the most genuine connection, and that sometimes walking away feels safer than fighting for what the heart truly wants. But here's the real question. When destiny brings two people together, can anything, family, distance, or fear, really tear them apart? We'll find out in part 2. Where Adrian must decide whether to keep listening to his mother's voice or finally listen to his heart. Before you go, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you want more powerful stories just like this. And while you wait for part 2, make sure you click on the video that's showing on your screen right now. I promise it's another story you don't want to miss.